Welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Brodinski, and somewhere sharing that split screen with me is Republican Town Councilor Christina Tatta. Christina, welcome back to the Citizen Mike Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you guys, glad to have you. So you guys had a late night on Tuesday night. I understand the meeting went, hours and hours and hours. I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it. In my pay grade, I just can't get through all of it, but maybe I will. But you were discussing what I call the gift that keeps on giving. It's the Simpson Court parking area and the Wooding Kaplan parking area. And it brings back some memories. Let me just lay those out before I forget, and then I'll go to you. I remember this back from the referendum in 2011. Back then, the cost of a Simpson Court parking lot with a lot of fancy lighting and a lot of enhancements, amenities and things like that was around $500,000. And the town voted and defeated that proposition. And then it came back, I think it was around 2012. But the difference was that the town had applied for a grant and was hoping that grant money would cover a large part of the cost of the Simpson Court parking rebuild. And also back then, abutting property owners were going to contribute $40,000. They divvied up that cost among themselves. And that's what I remember. And now this comes up. So what's new? What's going on this time?
This time, the agenda item was packaged as a total project combining the rear Simpson Court lot, which was what the referendum was in regards to, with the two they're calling them two Wallace Avenue lots. It's the lots on either side of Wallace Avenue that you refer to as Wooding Kaplan. So we received on our agenda an agenda item to appropriate $375,000 plus another approximately 42 that was already appropriated to do all of those projects. So the Wallace lots and Simpson Court.
So let's get some geography down, and if I can get to them while sort of managing the Zoom meeting at the same time. I made some JPEG slides, which I hope illustrates some of this. And I think I have up there Wallace Avenue and its intersection with Center Street, Route 150. And if I have the right slide up, where the cursor is moving inside the red boundaries, which I made, that's the area that is part of the concept to pave. And that purple line down the middle divides Wallace Avenue West, where the cursor is, from Wallace Avenue East, where the cursor is. And just to button up the geography here, the police station is on top of the slide. That may become relevant in our conversation in about 5 minutes or more. And if you wanted to go a walk from Wallace Ave or this Wooding Kaplan parking lot, you may walk in between the church and Archie Moore's. You might cross North Main Street, get into Simpson Court where the cursor is now, and walk in back of the buildings that abut Simpson Court to the other parking area that is being discussed. And the concept is to repave that too. So I'm going to try to get out of this and go to the other. We should have a aerial view. I'm going to enlarge this on my computer so I can see it. An aerial view of the Simpson Court parking lot concept. The areas in yellow are the portions that would be under this proposal be subject to a lease, and people would park there. There's a little way of getting out to Church Street, and you got 4 properties that are abutting that parking lot. We may come back to that slide if we need to, but I think that is good enough for the basics. So we're back. What's your thinking about all this?
I had an issue with the projects being combined into one. And that's how it appeared on the agenda. And I had assumed that the motion would reflect that, because typically Vice Chair Laffin makes the motions. Typically he'll word the motion exactly as it's on the agenda. So I had an issue with all of these being combined, and I can get into the reasons for that if you'd like.
Yeah, why?
Okay.
I mean, sounds reasonable, you know, they're doing a bunch of parking and why not?
The main reason is the Wallace lots are town-owned property, and the Simpson rear lot is privately owned. And because there was a referendum on that years ago, I felt like that's kind of a more serious issue, because 10 years ago, 60% of the voters who voted in the referendum said they did not want the town paying for that. And then it reappears combined with another project that the town owns. I also found out in doing some homework for the meeting that Public Works will most likely be doing the Wallace parking lot, and a private contractor who we put out to bid, who wins the bid, will be doing the Simpson Court parking lot. So I saw no reason why these would be combined into one project.
Okay, so you get to the meeting and I'm gonna sort of characterize your frame of mind. It may not be accurate, but you're sort of uncomfortable with this combo package. You hear the motion made, so what's a counselor to do? I mean, it's just you. So how do you handle that? How did you handle that?
I was the first to speak, and I explained basically what I just told you, and I made a motion to divide the question.
What's that mean?
So to divide the question, I basically said, instead of this all being one motion, we should have it divided into at least two. So we would know, and we could vote on each project separately. So it would say X amount of dollars is to be spent on the Simpson parking lot. We vote on that. We talk about that, vote on it. X amount of dollars is to be spent on the Wallace parking lots. We talk about that, discuss that. Maybe somebody would vote for one and not the other. You know, maybe somebody would say, oh, this one's way too much money. This one seems very reasonable. Let's do this one. And so that's the motion I made. There was discussion, and the motion did pass 6-3 to divide the question.
Yeah, but not without a fight. Right? I mean,
Correct. Correct.
so before we talk about that struggle to do something that's really simple, just break this into component parts so that counselors can sort of have an a la carte choice, because some may be in favor of all of them, in which case everything passes if there's a majority. So what's the harm? But they are, based on just what you said and the geography, they're separate projects that can be voted on separately, passed separately, financed separately. And I think, this is a question, who wouldn't want Wallace East and West done? I mean, did you get a sense that everyone was sort of in favor of that?
I didn't get that sense, because we honestly didn't really talk about that part of it all that much. The majority of the discussion was on the Simpson lot. So we really didn't, it wasn't discussed that much.
So before you tell me about your struggle on this motion to divide the question, give me a little more detail as to what the deal is on the Simpson lot. What do you know about what the arrangements would be?
There are proposed leases between the 4 property owners. So that lot is owned by the 4 building owners on the property. The proposed leases are 25-year leases. The town pays nothing monetarily to them, but in return for the 25-year lease, the town would need to repave that lot. And it's not a simple repaving, it's a complete dig it up, redo the drainage, repave it, stripe it, and it's a bigger project than the Wallace lots.
But when it's all done, when it's all said and done, it would look pretty spiffy. I think that's one of the arguments in favor of doing it.
Yes.
You mentioned 25-year leases. As I recall, back in the day, 2011, 2012, there were 30-year leases. And from a business perspective, I would think the town would want the longest possible lease. They're putting in all this money in, to redo the lot. How much we'll get to in a minute, but they're putting all this money in. So you want access to it as long as possible. Do you have any notion or any information as to why it went from 30 years in 2011, 2012 down to 25 years?
I do not have any info on that. I didn't hear anything about that.
And again, back in the day, the owners were going to put in $40,000, and I didn't hear you say they're putting in anything now.
They're not.
And the town would have the responsibility not only to repave and rebuild it, but for repairs and maintenance, snow plowing and the like.
Correct, which I believe we do currently on I think a portion of it, because one of the leases, there's current leases on it now that are kind of year to year. You can back out with a year's notice. So I think we're currently plowing those lots.
Okay.
At least 3 of them.
So again, before we get to your motion to divide, let's stop here and just focus on the Simpson Court parking lot. What are the pros and cons? What are the fair arguments for and against it? And tell me what your reaction is based on the information you have.
The pros are we get a very nice looking parking lot that's in a very visible area of town. More public parking for the uptown businesses. I guess those would be the pros. The cons, it's the fact that there's a question as to whether there's a need for that as public parking, or are those lots just used for those businesses? So a con would be the town pays for this, foots the bill, and there's really no need for anybody to park there except for to use those businesses. And I guess those would be the another big con is the referendum issue came up. I don't want to jump the gun, but Mr. Gross gave a very nice presentation, a member of the public, about the referendum 10 years ago, and said, we already said we didn't want it. Here we are back again. Why are we doing this again?
We are jumping ahead, but that's absolutely fine. Was there an answer to that question?
No, he just said it during, public comment. Mr. McGuire, who's one of the property owners, kind of had given a counter argument for the parking lot. So it was kind of nice to have those 2 arguments next to each other. They both had very good points, but there was no response to them.
Okay, so let's go back to your motion to divide. You wanted you wanted the parking areas broken down into separate votes. What was the argument against you? Because it seems to me, pretty fair. So what was the problem with that?
I'm not 100% sure still. The argument against it was it's one project.
It's one project. Okay. And anything else? I mean, were they? Okay, one project. I get it. I mean, we can make up our own minds. We laid out, some basic facts here. We saw the aerial, and common sense tells us it's not one project. It's more than one project.
Yeah. Somebody had mentioned something about savings. Maybe there were savings by doing them combined. And I would argue if Public Works is doing one and a private company is doing another, I don't see how there's savings. I could see maybe there'd be savings if Public Works is doing the whole thing and the materials and everything's done at once, but that's not the case.
So I gather because your motion passed, that the question was broken down into separate parts and you were able to vote on those separate parts, yeah?
No, sir.
No. All right. What happened?
The administration did not seem to have the numbers available to break out.
What numbers are you talking about? What number?
The costs for each lot. So my motion said, let's break it out and look at the costs and the merits of each on their own. And they did not have the costs split out for each project. They just said, here's the lump sum for all of them.
So I'm going to be the devil's advocate on this, just because we can be playful on the Citizen Mike Show. Yeah, we can have some fun. It's not always deadly serious.
Yep.
And I would come back and say, of course they had the numbers. Of course they did. If they were able to come up with a total cost of the project, which was Wallace East, Wallace West, and Simpson Court, they had to add a column of figures together, and it'd be very simple for them to sort out on the spot, frankly, especially if one is being done by outside labor and the other done on the inside. They had those numbers. I'm just going to put that forward as my theory. No, it's not a theory. That's true. I mean, that's just got to be true. If it's not true, what are they doing there? I mean, if they don't know that, how to price out one or the other, why do they come to a meeting and ask for this if they're so totally unprepared? Or are they winging it? They're just guessing at a cost. So I'm going to say they had it, but they didn't want to give it to you as an obstacle to your motion to divide and as an obstacle to voting on the project separately. Does my theory make sense to you?
Your theory makes sense, but I still don't know why. So that's what's a little baffling to me. And it wasn't a surprise to everyone there that I was going to ask that. I had asked a few people at town hall for those numbers. I did not receive them ahead of the meeting, and didn't receive them. I was basically told the same thing as at the meeting. It's one project. It's not separate numbers. And I informed a few of the counselors that I was probably going to go that route because I wanted it split out. So I didn't want to go in there blindsiding anybody so it wasn't a huge shock. I don't think it was a huge shock to them when I asked for them.
Yeah. Again, let me put a theory out. I did watch this part of the meeting where several counselors wanted to know the costs broken out separately. And I think maybe the idea of the administration was it's harder to vote against this if it's packaged, if it's a combination deal, harder to vote against it because people probably want the Wallace part of it done. And that's kind of a sweetener, if you will, for it. And even though they could have done it another way and just allowed the council, to vote majority rules on each project, they decided this was a strategy. Does that make sense to you?
You could? Sure.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah, it makes sense to me. So when I watched this part of the meeting, the mayor was very aggressive in not cooperating with the numbers. And it seemed to me that after your motion to divide the question passed, the council had spoken 6-3. Let's break this out. And we need the numbers that would attach to each component of the motion, the Wallace component and the Simpson Court component. And I think at that point, the chairman of the council, as the representative of the council who had just spoken 6-3, would have, should have, could have turned to the mayor and say, we're not going to get bogged down in continuing meetings and tabling things and making councilors come back late at night. You've got the numbers. What are they? But he didn't. And he seemed to be providing air cover for keeping the information from the council. I don't know. It seemed to be, okay, Christina, you don't have the information. The mayor's not giving to you. I guess we're stuck. We're going to table this. Nothing's going to get done. It's going to be rescheduled for some other time. That part of the meeting, it was just a bad. I would encourage people of Wallingford not to look at that section of the meeting. They'll be very disappointed at how the town is run when the mayor has information and he won't give it to the council who needs it, to carry on with their business. Very disappointed. At any event, let's skip ahead, change the subject just a little bit, but staying on this. The police union had something to say. And I'm wondering if you could share that with us and give us your thoughts as to what they said.
unfortunately, I didn't receive this until after the meeting. It ended up in my spam box for some reason, but I saw it today. The police union wrote us a letter. They did not want us to support the project because they are upset that the Wallace Avenue parking lots, specifically, I believe Wallace East on your map, the farther back one, they are upset that that is going to be paved, and they have a gravel parking lot unpaved that I think they say has been unpaved since the 80s. And they say, you know, we use this parking lot every single day. Yep, there it is. We use this lot every single day, 365 days a year, all 24 hours a day. We're in and out, and we park our private cars back there when we're, you know, when they're on duty. They say it's muddy. They say their cars are getting dirty every day. They're tracking mud into the police station. Anyway, long story short, they're upset that they said, you're going to pay money to pay the Wallace Ave one, and one that really is only used during Celebrate Wallingford, that the east side, you know, it's used once a year. Why are you going to pave that and, you know, leave us in this mess? And we use this every single day. And then they were also upset because I guess the post office uses the Wallace lot as an overflow, and they are a little upset that we would, you know, give them a nice parking lot, but not our own town employees. So that was the gist of their letter.
So how do you assess, you know, their grievance, the nature of what their claim? What's your view?
I mean, it's valid. I told them I would like to maybe see the state of that before our next meeting. So hopefully I'll get to go over there and take a look for myself. But I understand their frustration. I don't know that it has to be either or. So I don't know that to say like, well, don't pave that one, but do pave ours. Maybe we should just look at that and do that whole section. Now that might be a related project that is connected geographically. I assume Public Works would do it. I might be right with that one.
That's unfair of you. That's so unfair.
I know, right?
Hey, look, word has leaked out over the years. For those that follow town council business carefully, word has leaked out that the police department may not be there, you know, for the long term. Back when I was on the council, Chief D'Ortenzio pushed very hard. Police Chief Doug D'Ortenzio pushed very hard to relocate the police station. I don't want to, you know, sort of go over all the reasons why, but basically it was too small, especially if they were going to be hiring more and more lady police officers. It had, you know, locker room issue and other facilities too. So could it be that they are just going to meet with frustration that nothing is going to be done? If the mayor thinks that one day something is, you know, the police station might move, you know, could that be a reason not to take any action on it?
Yeah, that certainly could be a valid reason. But this, you know, this is kind of the first I was hearing about this. I wasn't aware of the condition of that lot, but yeah, I mean, I guess if that is in the works and it's happening soon, but again, how long might that take? I mean, even if tomorrow we said we're moving the police station, I mean, it's at least probably 5 years, no? So
Well, wait, whoa. You stumbled onto the question you never should ask in Wallingford. How long will that take? You should never. Well, you're a rookie counselor, so you're
John Letourneau taught me about that. He calls it Wallingford time.
It's Wallingford time.
Wallingford clock.
So I want to change the subject a little bit. As a consequence of the mayor kind of stonewalling, and I think Vinnie Cervoni shares some responsibility for this too. As a representative of the council, he should have insisted on the information, and it should have gotten from the mayor a commitment to provide it in due course and quickly, like today. But Craig Fishbein, as a consequence of the mayor stonewalling on the cost of the separate projects, Craig filed a freedom of information request to get all that stuff, to get all those numbers and figures. So if the mayor won't give you that voluntarily, Craig is hoping that the force of the Freedom of Information Act will require the town departments to give you the information which you're entitled to as a counselor, and it shouldn't have to go this far. Just your thoughts on what Craig went through and that process.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is what Craig does, and he knows how to do it. So he sent he filed that with Public Works, purchasing, engineering, and the law department. And he asked for, basically everything: emails, correspondence, letters, anything they have. He wants to see it, and I'm sure he would, share that with the council. I don't blame him for doing it. I mean, I may have maybe given them a few days to see if maybe they just gave it to us on their own based on what happened at the meeting. But I can't blame him for requesting it. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, I think it's a little bit unfortunate that it has to go that way. I would hope we could, maybe just get the information by asking. So I was kind of sad to see that it went down that road, because I think that's a much bigger pain for everybody, and that's.
Well, I would suspect what Craig is really after is a reasonably detailed breakdown of those separate projects. It could be in a letter, or it could be in a spreadsheet or something, which they have anyway, probably with a couple clicks of the mouse and a print button, it's probably available. And I suspect if Craig got that, that might satisfy the request. I mean, I'm not speaking for Craig, I haven't spoke to him, but I think that's what he's really after. And it's sort of, hey, if you guys want to play that way, if you want to be stonewalling the council, then you're leaving us to our own devices, and this is the tool we have. So let's change the subject.
Okay.
All right. There was a story in the Record Journal, I think it was today. When the Record Journal thinks something is important, when it's on the front page and above the fold. And this one, I'm looking at the online version: proposed zoning changes withdrawn but not off the table in Wallingford. Now, usually zoning matters are pretty dry, pretty arcane, pretty detailed, very confusing, very technical. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole in this situation, but there's a story here about how Wallingford works and why, that is worth telling, that the Record Journal kind of touches on, but I don't think gives it the edge that I want to put to it. So we're talking about zoning changes that impacted two zones, the IX and the I-5, together with a watershed protection district. And I think because geography matters, I think we got some stuff we can put on the screen, if all of this works, to try to explain that. And oops, that should work. Do you see an I-5 slide there?
I do. Yep.
I'm going to just enlarge it on my set so I can talk about it a little more easily. This is a map that shows a portion of eastern Wallingford, where Route 68 and Route 91 intersects. Just to get the geography down, we got Route 68 in blue. My cursor, I think, is following that.
Mm-hmm.
That's Route 68, and Route 91 is in tan. Route 91 slices pretty much vertically north and south through the map. Most folks know where the Bristol-Myers site was. That's with this circle, BMS. That's my lettering that I put in there. But that's where the old Bristol-Myers site was. And that's where the new Amazon facility would go if everything is approved. That's in the IX, which is in red also. The shaded area is the watershed protection district. And as you can see, the gray area overflows Route 91 to the west into the I-5. The watershed protection district overflows Route 68 to the south, south of Route 68, that's I-5. And my understanding, and I don't profess to have a lot of expertise and experience in this area. My understanding is that this area is the headwaters of the Muddy River, which flows into the Mackenzie Reservoir, which is obviously an important water source. And I see all these little ponds. My cursor is sort of tracking them. And I think that's like major watershed wetlands area. So it can be, I think it is considered sort of a highly protected and sensitive area. I'm just going to move the cursor a little bit. These are where the hotels are in the I-5. You can think of the I-5 as maybe the hotel district, and maybe the IX as the old Bristol-Myers site. The IX also goes a little north where the cursor is now, but that's not in the watershed district. Okay, so what? So let me just stop this share and sort of go back to the screen. So what? Well, the way I understand it, the Economic Development Commission and Planning and Zoning were thinking about for years. I think I saw something in the minutes that it goes back to 2016, trying to modernize and revamp the regulations pertaining to that area to try to make it easier for new businesses to come in and different types of businesses to come in. And finally, people started putting concepts into proposed zoning language. And that brings us up to early 2020. And I want to take my eyes off the camera, reach for a piece of paper and read you something, because this begins the story. At least I think it begins the story. This is taken from a letter from Eric Kruger. He's a senior engineer at the Water Division that he wrote to the acting town planner. And in the letter, he said, I got 3 sentences for you. He says, in a letter dated February 4, 2020, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Director of Public Utilities and the General Manager of the Water Division requested that if manufacturing, storage, and warehousing were allowed, the regulations, meaning the zoning regulations, the watershed regulations, should specifically state that certain uses would not be permitted within the water protection overlay district in portions of the I-5. Now, we saw how much the watershed protection district went into the I-5. So that might be interpreted as wanting to inhibit or slow development or commercial activity in that area. There's another sentence from his letter of November 18, 2020 to the acting town planner, and it reads in part this way: zoning regulations play a significant role in influencing whether watershed is protected by limiting the use of the land in the watershed to those which do not have a negative effect on water quality. We ask that you and the Planning and Zoning Commission take into consideration the fact that some of the proposed zoning text amendments in the subject application, the application is to change the language of the zoning regs. Some of these text amendments will have long-term implications on the ability to continue to maintain the source water quality necessary to provide safe drinking water to the entire town of Wallingford. Sounds pretty serious, yeah?
Yep.
The backstory is, of course, the Amazon facility is going to go into the IX, which is right next to the, I-5. Well, my scanty research reveals, mainly listening to the Economic Development Commission meeting, that the Economic Development Commission and the business recruiter, Tim Ryan, were unhappy with the position of the Water Division and were uncomfortable that the Planning and Zoning Commission may support the philosophy of the Water Division. Got it? So we have economic development on one side of the seesaw, the Water Division on the other side of the seesaw. The Planning and Zoning Commission, you can't trust those guys, never know which way they're going to go, Maybe they would side with the Water Division, maybe they would side with economic development people. I don't want to get into the technical, text changes. This is just the conceptual battle that's going on that made it to the front page without Lauren Takoris of the Record Journal saying, hey, there's an internal battle going on, you know? So when Monday night, this past Monday night, when a vote might have been taken, which might have sided with the Water Division or might have sided with economic development people, the mayor sent a letter in time for that meeting and said, let's bring it all to a stop. Withdraw the application for the new language. We'll go back to the drawing boards, and maybe 6 years will turn into 12. Your thoughts on my thoughts? Anything at all?
Well, one interesting thing, you said the mayor sent the letter. I thought it was interesting, it said in the article, the letter was signed by multiple departments. So it was the mayor, public utilities director, economic development, the law department. So I think they all probably, you know, realized this is, we better pause this.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the mayor's department. So, and Tim Ryan said in the article, Tim Ryan, economic development specialist, says, we need to get it right. That's why I was happy to sign the letter.
Right.
So
that's absolutely right. So it's just a little, I think it's a little frustrating for all involved in that those observers who now wonder whether or not our watershed is in peril are sort of left hanging. Those wanting more relaxed zoning regulations, they're frustrated because maybe there's leads they have to bring in businesses or, you know, new uses and things, and that's not going to happen. I think there was a target date of March 31 to get this all ironed out. You know, I'm not sure. A question I have when going through all this is, what is the science and the data that makes the Water Division concerned enough to write a letter, you know, on public record, to raise concerns? What are they pointing to? How does contamination of the water supply work? What specifically are the evils that they're trying to prevent, so we can better understand what zoning regs, you know, may work? I reached out to the Public Utilities Commission, the Water Division, to come on the Citizen Mike show, sort of walk us through that. You know, guys, this is a serious concern you're raising. Explain in layman's language what there is to worry about, if anything. And I got an answer back, no, not at this time. And in view of the underlying controversy, you know, I can absolutely see that. We have, though, a little video clip of Tom Talbot, which kind of, well, it gives his perspective. Let's see if we can make that work. Maybe it's about 2 minutes. And he, I think, is going to be explaining his understanding of the Water Division's position. Here we go, 3, 2, 1.
Explicit, the Water Division has been, I can't recall how specific they were at the last public hearing, but in discussions with them over the years, they've always been very clear about why they object to uses in the I-5 that are permitted in the IX. In their minds, they see it as a situation where these uses that are permitted in the IX, that's a fact on the ground. That's an existing fact on the ground. They don't want to extend it to the I-5 for no other reason than because they think that just that represents that much more of a threat to the watershed. It's not a technical response. It's almost sort of a, I don't know, I don't want to mischaracterize, but it's almost a political response. To them, existing regulations are a done deal. They're not so much focused on sort of equity in the two districts in terms of uses. They just don't want what's currently permitted in IX portions of the watershed to be extended into IX portions of the I-5. I don't think they make a distinction between the nature of the I-5 and the IX. It's expansion of uses that they're, well, I'm going to say it, that they're suspicious. That's, and they've expressed this a number of times.
Ouch.
Oh my.
Right. To be continued because this isn't over, right? It's going to come back. They say in March. So we'll try to continue to follow it. And maybe we can have someone from either Water Vision or Planning Zone or something that can walk us through this slowly. And so we can get our arms around it. It's all going to come to a head.
If I can jump in, I just want to say the not a tech, he said it's not a technical response. I have to say, if the response came from Mr. Hendershot, I have in my short time, around here, I have never known him to not give a technical response. So I'm not really following this all that closely, but
yeah,
I would be surprised if Mr. Hendershot didn't give a technical response. That's usually what he does. So
yeah, we could use a little more information there.
Yeah.
So let's change the subject because we're gonna run out of time. When you and I were planning this show, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, it was back in December, clearly, when the Citizen Mike Show was trying to figure out what its wintertime schedule was going to be. We knew that by the time we put on this first show, which is January 13, 2021, we knew rock solid certain we would have an audit in our hands and we would be able to discuss the financial results of the town. Lo and behold, the financial comprehensive annual financial report is nowhere to be seen. Hey, you're a town councilor. We're just average citizens. What's going on here?
We don't really know all that much right now. I was planning and I was all excited New Year's Day. I was ready to sit down with my first CAFR and go through it, and it didn't show up. So I asked, asked if you guys said, hey, Happy New Year, where's the CAFR? And come to find out, the comptroller sent us a memo on January 7th. And he said that we received an extension from the state of Connecticut for completion of our annual audit to January 31st. The reason being that the town apparently did not receive from the actuarial firm some paperwork that they needed to complete it, and that has delayed the final audit.
What do you make of that?
I'm not really sure at this point, but so what I did do was I requested it to be on our next council agenda discussion about this, and Councilor Marone also made that same request. So the two of us both have requested that we discuss this at our next council meeting. My initial thoughts are, I just want to know what held it up. If the actuaries didn't do their job timely, then if that's someone that we hire, then we need to discuss, do we hire them again? So that's, there's something there, but we don't really have all that much info right now.
Yeah, so we know, you and I know, at least because we prepared for the show to some degree, that most every other town has filed their comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR is a short word for it. They filed that on time with the state. There's town after town after town after town have filed it on the state website. It's available for viewing, but not Wallingford. And I think probably that the actuary being referred to is the pension actuary, and that could be a firm, probably is a firm we've used for a long time. And that actuarial firm services an awful lot of towns. I mean, there aren't that many pension actuaries out there that do municipal work, this complicated work. And so having heard that the actuary didn't get information to us in time, isn't that what they're saying? The town is saying? Read those words again.
Yes. No, I'm reading from the actual memo.
Yeah.
We did not receive information from our actuarial firm that was required in our audit until December 23rd, 2020. This delayed us from completing the required statements and notes with our auditing firm.
Okay, so I was aware of that. I have that somewhere in my pile of papers, and I said, well, it sounds like the town is trying to point the fingers at the actuarial firm, but I'm just wondering if the actuarial firm was waiting for information from the town before they could report back. And I'm not sure, all the blame should go on the actuarial firm, and I don't appreciate a letter which is probably incomplete as the full facts and circumstances, pointing the finger the other way. I think there's probably another side to the story as to why this all happened. And just saying, well, the actuarial firm, was late is just too slick. But hopefully you'll get some answers at the next council meeting. But hopefully those answers are complete. If the actuarial firm didn't get information back in time, it's why. Were they depending on the town in any way for anything for them to complete whatever it was they were trying to complete? Was this a team effort, and maybe the town was also late in completing its part of the job? I don't know, but it's kind of disappointing because we wanted to talk about, the surplus or the deficit, or, that kind of thing.
We did, and also, town departments are starting their budgets in January, and so, they'll have their internal numbers of where they landed, but the town always uses the audit as the final say, and so
Yeah.
working on budgets and not really knowing where you landed last year, I think could be problematic. So
Let's call it a wrap. But I read a note. You're coming on next show?
yes, I am.
Wow.
If you'll have me again.
I read that just now. So we can continue on with the topics, that we didn't have a chance to get to. So we're going to see you next week, and viewers, we hope to see you next week. And thanks for watching the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks, Christina, for coming on. Thanks to WPAA, who puts this show up 9 o'clock on their television station on Thursday, Fridays, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Good night, everybody. Good night, Christina.